The Michigan Man Podcast, episode 245. 60,000 fans packed the big house on Saturday to get a peek at Coach Jim Harbaugh's Wolverines. That and more on this week's show. Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast, brought to you in partnership with Maize & Brew, your best source for quality Michigan Wolverine news, rumors, analysis, stats, and scores from the fan perspective, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Saturday's spring game was as close as you can get to a fall game day experience in April. It was perfect football weather. We got to see a game instead of a scrimmage. The band and the cheerleaders were there, as well as 60,000 or so fans. We might not have learned much about this team, but it was fun to see them go at it in a game day type setting. Now we have to wait until September 3rd. On that Thursday evening, Jim Harbaugh and his team will travel to Utah for a Thursday night game to open the season. One thing we can take from Saturday's game is there is much work to be done in between now and then. My guest today has seen many a spring game or scrimmage, so it's interesting to get her take on what she saw on Saturday. The angel of the big house, football beat writer Angelique Chengelis, joins me in just a few minutes with her recap of spring practice. First, a few Wolverine news and notes. As many of you noticed, senior center Graham Glasgow was back in uniform on Saturday. Coach Harbaugh told reporters that the legal system will determine Graham's future. For now, he is back on the team. We all hope Graham can stay focused and keep to the straight and narrow. Coach Harbaugh said there is nothing more the university or I or the football program could have on Graham right now than what the courts have. He went on to say that any further punishment will be up to Glasgow and his willingness or unwillingness to obey the court orders. Michigan picked up another 2016 commitment on Monday. Three-star running back Kingston Davis from Prattville, Alabama, is now verbally committed. Coach Harbaugh now has 5 verbal commits in the class. Spike Albrecht will undergo hip surgery in the coming weeks and miss the summer workouts. He is expected to be back and ready to go in October when practice begins. Michigan is waiting to see if Karis LeVert will try the NBA or come back for his senior year. Karis has until April 26th to make his decision. Michigan Hoops picked up its one and only recruit for 2015 on Monday. 6'10" German forward Moritz Wagner will be heading to Ann Arbor soon and take part in summer workouts with his new teammates. Angelique Chengelis has been Michigan's football beat writer for many years. She's covered the team through the glory days and the struggles of the last 7 years. What does she think of Jim Harbaugh's first team? Stay tuned and find out. The angel of the big house is with me next on our Michigan Game Day segment, here on the Michigan Man Podcast, in partnership with SB Nation's Maize & Brew. With us this week on our Michigan Game Day segment to talk some Michigan spring football, Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Great to have you back, even though it's spring.
Oh, Mike, it's great to be back, and it was actually more fun to be talking about a game, an actual game. And I went back and looked back at all the clips, and I think 01 they played some game-like situations, but I think 98 was the last real game. So it was kind of nice to go back to that.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it was nice to go back to it. I know as fans, we were looking forward to that heading into Saturday. And then after the game, when I was watching BTN interview a lot of the players, they really seemed to like the fact that it's an entirely different atmosphere for them playing that kind of a game.
Well, and I think talking to guys who played in '98 and these guys on Saturday, I think you go through these 14 practices. They're pretty grueling. And it's nice to actually see what you're working on and how it translates to a game. And obviously it's not an exact game situation, a replica, but it does give you an idea of how you're applying the things that you've been learning these 4-hour practices. And I think they like the whole idea of winning. There's a chance to win something, and there's stakes on the line and pasta for the losers, and there's a little bit of trash talking going involved. So I think all those things made it feel like, okay, all this was really worth it. And obviously it would have been regardless, but it gives them that little extra level of competitiveness.
Well, we expected a different environment for this year's spring game. It was, of course, Coach Harbaugh's first as head coach. And again, it was a game. That was a good turnout. I know they're saying 60,000 fans, but it looked even maybe like there were a bit more there to me.
It's hard to say, and I became such an expert of guessing how many fans were missing last year, Mike, but it was a great crowd. I mean, I was saying 60, 65, and Michigan said that their official estimate was 60,000, and it was a good weather day, and you're right. I think the whole anticipation of the Harbaugh era and seeing Jim Harbaugh back on the field, I think that was a big attraction, and to see if I just think the game setting attracts people. I mean, I look back at those old clips, and there were sometimes 4,000 people in the stadium for these glorified practices. So I think that whole combination, but really the whole Harbaugh effect, I think, was the reason people were in there, and to see where the quarterbacks were at this point. And clearly that's going to be a changing situation as they go into the season. But I think there were a lot of things people wanted to see, but mostly Harbaugh.
Well, as you said on Sunday in the Detroit News, Angelique, the spring football refrain always goes something like this. The defense is way ahead of the offense. No question about that again on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I think that's going to be the situation in the fall. I think even if there hadn't been a coaching transition, I think the defense would have been the stronger unit, not only in the spring but going into the fall. I think there were a lot of very, very nice pieces there, and particularly Jabril Peppers, and I think just talking to the kid, we've never had a chance to talk to Jabril since he's been on campus media wise, and he is what they advertise. I mean, he's a talker. He's a very confident guy, not cocky, and I think I asked him if he felt like a difference maker on the field, and he wouldn't say that, but I think he knows he can be that person, and he talked about the way he feels like he's making a difference is really trying to bring up his teammates. And it was refreshing to hear him talk. And certainly the other defense, I thought the defensive line looked very good. I really think the defense overall and the secondary, which I think hasn't been entirely there, not been a great unit these last couple of years. I think it could be a very good one. And mostly because of Peppers, but I think that there's some other really nice pieces back there. It's just the offense is going to take some time, and not just because they made a coaching change, not because it's a new system. I just think they're a little behind personnel-wise.
Well, absolutely, and we expect that this time of the year, and that defense, again, looked darn good again on Saturday. It was good last year in the top 10 statistically and in most categories, so we expect it to be good this year. Now, on the offensive side, we saw two quarterbacks on the field, junior Shane Morris, and then we had true freshman Alex Malzone. What did you think of their play?
Well, I thought Alex looked like a freshman at times. I mean, probably most of the time. I think he's got potential, but I just don't think he's there yet. I'm always hesitant. I know you can talk about Chad Henne being out there as a freshman. I think that's not the ideal situation, and certainly Zach Gentry's coming in the fall. But I think Shane, the conversation from people who've attended practice all spring, Shane wasn't performing that well. He was behind the pack. I thought he looked like a guy who wanted to be in front of the pack, and he made some good throws. I think the interception was a catchable pass, and I think he looked like he's a guy who's going to hang in there and take a hit and make a throw, and it looks like he developed a little touch. I think that's hard for a guy who's wired like Shane Morris, who knows he can throw the 100-mile fastball. and it's hard for him to reel that in and throw the touch pass. And I know that's what they've worked on the last couple of years, but I think with Jed Fish in there, I think that's been a real point with when working with Shane Morris this spring. And he knows that the talk about Jake Rudock, and he knows about Gentry coming in. And I thought that was someone asked him about that, and he said, they could bring in 100 guys. I don't care. And I thought I hadn't really heard Shane sound that confident in previous interviews, and not cocky, but just knowing that he's got a chance. And I thought that was really interesting to hear from him.
Well, as Coach Harbaugh said after the spring game, he being Shane Morris, has nudged ahead of Alex Malzone in the battle for quarterback. But yes, we have Zach Gentry coming in, true freshman, and of course Jake Rudock coming over from Iowa. So this competition is going to go right up until September 3rd, possibly.
Oh, I think so too. And it's funny, Mike. I don't want to keep bringing up looking back into those old articles and going back in the archives, but it was funny how year after year, Coach Carr was saying, we're going to keep figuring out our quarterback situation. So this is not a new problem at Michigan, and I think it's a good problem. I mean, I think that while everybody would like to know who the guy is, I think it's a good problem that they're going into the fall with competition, and maybe these guys aren't the guys who are going to lead them to a Big Ten championship. Maybe they're bringing guys in who could be the quarterback, but they're all going to press each other. There is going to be competition. Maybe there's attrition out of all this. You don't know when there's that many quarterbacks in camp. So I think it's a really fluid situation. I think it can be enjoyable to watch because I think it's not always a great thing to know that, okay, 98's your quarterback this year again. And he hasn't really had a lot of competition to make him better. But these guys are getting better, I think, and they will get better even when O'Korn comes in too. He can't play this year, but he can practice. So there's going to be a lot of competition, and you've got a guy coaching you who has been there and been in the NFL for years and knows how to play the position. So I just think it's a good thing. It'll be really interesting to see how it shakes out. But I thought Shane, he looked good on Saturday. Not great, but he looked good. And I think that he proved why he's a little bit ahead of the pack.
Well, Angelique, when I watched last year's spring game, I came away thinking either we're going to have problems on offense or our defense is really that good. And that was pretty much my takeaway again after this Saturday's game. We have to be realistic in understanding this offense has a long way to go, doesn't it?
It really does. And we've talked about this even last year. The offensive line looked like it was making some strides, and I just think that's relative, Mike. I mean, I think when you look at the way the season ended last year, it was against okay teams in Big Ten, with the exception of Ohio State. And I just think Michigan plays well in that game regardless. And I just think you can't measure this offensive line against mediocre offenses, with the exception of Ohio State. And I think they got better, but this is not a great offensive line. I think I think Glasgow at center is a good move. I think he's a very good athlete. He's a good guy to have there. And then you hear about Kalis is finally playing well. Well, I mean, it's his third year. I think it's about time. But there's just not that great presence on the offensive line. At least I haven't seen it yet. I think Braden is a great physical presence, but I don't know if he's a great offensive lineman yet. And I think that's what's missing. And I think once you get that sorted out, and I don't think it's going to be this year, and maybe in a few years down the road, Mason Cole's very good too. It's just I think that's just not quite there. And whoever you put behind them, the quarterback always looks better when your offensive line is really sound. Same with your running game, and that's the other thing. We didn't really get a chance to see the running backs on Saturday. I don't think in a great amount. And I wanted to see Ty Isaac. So I think there's a lot of question marks going in the fall. But the coaches, Mike, don't seem that frazzled about it. They're like, hey, they got summer conditioning and there's fall practice, and there's still plenty of time to get this worked out.
No, you're right. The coaching staff, each one of them that I saw interviewed, just seemed very laid back about the entire thing. And then watching Coach Harbaugh's presser after the game, he just was very relaxed. Very relaxed.
And it's interesting talking to the players about Harbaugh. They think he's funny, which is not the takeaway I take from press conference, although he can be amusing. But they think so. I think that there is a little bit of I don't think he's laid back, but I think he understands what he inherited and what he has to do. And I think his coaching staff knows that, maybe because most of them are NFL guys, and And they're not, those guys don't panic. I mean, they have to work through details and get their guys ready. And I think that they did a nice job in recruiting with the brief amount of time they had, and I think they're already doing a nice job for 16. So I think that they know this is a process, and that's the word they keep using. This is a process. And, I don't think, while they want to win right away, of course, everybody wants to see Michigan win, all the Michigan fans do, but I think they understand it's going to take some time, but that's not an excuse for not winning this year. But the pieces aren't quite there yet.
Well, Angelique, you've seen a few spring games or scrimmages, whichever one you want to call them, through the years. Do you get any kind of a feeling coming out of this one? And I know access is limited, but do you get any kind of a vibe that things are different now, or something has changed in the way this team is being coached or prepared?
Well, I do. I mean, I think that it was a couple of weeks, maybe a week and a half into practice before we talked to some of the players, and they were really, enthusiastic and maybe some people don't want change, and some people don't like that transition and having to get used to new coaches and new position coaches, but these guys seem to really embrace it. And I think because it's Jim Harbaugh, Mike, I think there's that instant street cred with these young guys, and they know who he is. I mean, everybody on that field knew who Jim Harbaugh was when they hired him. So I think that made it a little bit easier for these guys to get enthusiastic about it. I think that they like the test of the 4-hour practice and how grueling that is, and the mental and the physical test that is. And I think that there is a different level of enthusiasm. I think that there are different demands being made of them, and I think they also know that this is an NFL caliber staff in a sense. I mean, most of these guys have coached there, and these guys, a lot of these guys want to make that next step. They want to go to the NFL, and they know that if they work for guys who have been there, who have connections, then that's going to bode well for their future. So I think I'm probably reading too much into it in that sense, but I think that there is just a general overall enthusiasm among these players that I haven't, I think every year, every spring brings that out in these guys, but I think it was definitely having the game, having the winners with the steaks and the pasta. I think that all played very well with them.
With us this week, recapping spring practice and the spring game on Saturday, is beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Angelique, aside from the game on Saturday, there were a few other pieces of news that surfaced, not only on game day, but just before that. One being the fact Graham Glasgow is back. And as you said, Coach Harbaugh didn't mince any words when discussing his status with the team, did he? No,
he didn't. And I think, I think he wants this to play out. I mean, it's going to play out publicly because this is an offense, and there are court records that are out there for people to keep track of. And when I asked him if there's going to be any further suspension, because I suspected there would be, I think his point is this guy is getting breathalyzer tests morning, night. He is being scrutinized. He is being watched. He has been told this is what you have to do to stay on this team. And I was actually surprised that Jim was that forthcoming talking about him after the spring game, talking about Graham. And I think Graham is a smart guy. He's got a brother on the team. He's got another brother who's going to be a walk-on. I think he wants to keep this. He wants to stay on this team, so he knows what he has to do. And a lot of guys make blockhead decisions, obviously. We've seen it year after year. And it's not just football players. It's students in general. And I think this one plays out so publicly, he has to do what he's told to do, and he knows what the consequences are.
Well, another tidbit coming out of Saturday was that for the first time in 5 years, there is a waiting list again for tickets, and the 81 premium suites are sold out. The Jim Harbaugh effect?
Yes. I mean, we had a chance to talk to Jim Hackett. He was up in the broadcast booth talking to Deerdorf and Brandstetter, and a couple of us had a chance to talk to him, and he first, he talked about how he had his emotional moment finally at the first day of practice when he was standing off alone and saw Harbaugh and saw the players and saw how all the interaction was going. And that was the first time I think he had his moment where, look, I got Jim Harbaugh here. This is a great thing for Michigan. And I think that's snowballing into ticket sales and suite sales and season ticket waiting lists that they haven't had in like you said, more than 5 years. And yes, I think it's absolutely the Jim Harbaugh effect, and I did a story a couple weeks ago on I think we called it Harbaugh Mania, and talking to people who evaluate how many times coaches' names or sponsors are mentioned. And Jim has been in the news nationally a lot since he got hired. And he's making his presence felt on Twitter. And I mean, he's getting out there, and he's really appealing not only to these young guys who might be potential recruits, but he's really reeling in the Michigan fan base again. And I thought that was pretty clear on Saturday with the crowd. And it's certainly going to pay dividends for Michigan's athletic department in terms of ticket sales and suite sales. And they won't know a final number, I think, until June, what their numbers are, but they feel pretty confident that this is, they're going to fill the stadium like we didn't see last year.
Well, Mr. Hackett mentioned there will be an announcement soon regarding a night game this year. Do you think there's a good chance that might be against Michigan State?
I was trying to read those tea leaves, and I was joking with him. I said, is this going to be like the Russians and U.S. and way back when, and who's going to get into space first? Because it is one of those things, well, if Michigan doesn't do it first, Michigan State's going to do it first. And I've always been in favor of the Michigan State night game. I certainly understand all the security issues, but I'm not sure I understand why it's that much different than having a Notre Dame game at night. And I mean, all the fan bases like to enjoy a little pregame partying, and interpret that any way you want. But I think it would be exciting. I think it makes a rivalry game that used to be such a just an in-state focus. I think it definitely has a more national impact now, and I think it would be a great draw in a night setting at Michigan Stadium. And I thought it was also interesting that he sees in the very near future it's going to be multiple night games at Michigan Stadium, because he feels like, I forget what the number was, they've played 17 night games and only 3 at home, and that's clearly not an advantage for Michigan. So he knows that the fan base likes night games, the television audience likes night games. He didn't ask me if I like night games. I prefer a noon game if anybody's listening, but I think it's night games are fun. They're festive and they're different, and I would really like to see that game at night, Michigan State at night, Michigan Stadium.
Well, I was trying to read between the lines when he was talking about that, and he mentioned November. Maybe that's
yes.
Not a good time of the year. Of course, that's Ohio State. So when you look at the schedule, you would think it really has to be Michigan State. And for years, we've always heard the athletic departments on both sides did not want to give fans that much time to prep up for the games. And then have to deal with it at night. But that seems to have changed, that kind of thinking.
I would hope so. I mean, I guess I'm more trustworthy of the fan bases. I think you're always going to have incidents, and you're always going to have people who have to get thrown out of the stadium. But I'm not envisioning, I mean, maybe I have too much faith in the fan bases, but I don't envision, police riots and tear gas and that kind of situation. And I thought the other interesting thing he said, that Jim said about night games, is that they don't want it to be the first game of the season, because students are just getting onto campus. They don't want to just sort of throw this at them too as they're trying to move in and get the classes and figure out their schedule. So unless it's a premium opener, I mean, against a premium team, I don't think you'll see a night game that early in the season either. So I think you're right. That window it sounds like mid-September to mid to late October would be your best bet. And we all know what the weather's like after November. It's very iffy. Could be warm, but usually it's not. So I say that about Michigan State. I don't want to see the Michigan-Ohio State game at night. I don't think that's, especially now that it's on after Thanksgiving, it's a holiday weekend. I think that's tough for fans. So I think you got to keep that. I mean, I've always thought that game should be at noon, and maybe because I know that Bo always said that, and I think that is the tradition that you should keep for that game.
A final question then, Angelique. Now we wait until September. Spring practice is over, and the next time we see this team play will be on the road against Utah. But the preseason hype in actuality starts as early as May into June, when all the preseason magazines and websites start rolling out their predictions. On BTN Saturday, a couple of the halftime analysts said this Michigan team should win 7 or 8 games, and I thought that was a low number. I thought we should have won 7 or 8 last year, even though we struggled. I know it's hard to tell right now, but do you think 7 or 8 wins is pretty much right on for this team?
I do, and I'm wondering if I'm thinking because I really overestimated that team last year. I thought on paper, I thought that could be a 10-win team. I thought they had the talent with the Funches, and I thought Baumgardner would be settled in a quarterback. So you just don't know. But I think 7 or 8, I think that's keeping expectations very reasonable. And when I talk to different analysts about this team, they think the difference Harbaugh can make is that they'll win games they should have won last year, like Rutgers, like Maryland. And maybe there's going to be a game that they're going to play tight and they're going to lose, or maybe there's one that they should win that they're going to drop, and there's one that nobody thinks they're going to win that they'll win. So I think when you count all that, it's probably that 7 or 8 game window. And it's hard to say because we don't know who the quarterback is. I think the strong speculation would be, if Iowa's transfer quarterback Jake Rudock shows up, he would probably be the guy. But we don't know that much about him. I mean, he got good numbers, but it was not like Iowa had any. They were not setting the world on fire either offensively. So that needs to be settled, and I think then you make a more educated guess on the record. But I think from now, I mean, although you could say the defense could pull out some games for them and score some points for them, kind of like Michigan State's Rose Bowl winning team. So, when you have that kind of complexion, if you allow your offense that kind of leeway to catch up, give them a month to figure out what their situation is, they could have a strong season. But I think 7 or 8 right now is probably that's the window to focus on for this team, for his first season as head coach.
Well, there you go, Michigan fans. We have to wait until August for the hype to begin in earnest. So when camp starts, and then, of course, a September 3rd Thursday night game against Utah, which will be strange, won't it, Angelique?
It really will be. It'll be kind of interesting. It's nice to see Michigan doing things that are not traditional in some ways, but Thursday night, it'll be different, but you're right. It makes it sound like it's so far away, but I think we'll be talking in feels like in a couple weeks we'll be talking about the opening of the season. So they'll have all those satellite camps that everybody will be buzzing about in June, and I think Jim Harbaugh will find a way to keep himself in the news with his Twitter feed. That's my guess for these next couple months.
Well, I think we can bank on that. Our guest here on our Michigan Game Day segment as we recap spring practice and the game on Saturday has been Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Angelique, I hope you have a wonderful spring and summer before it gets crazy again with football starting up, and as you said, it will be here before we know it. So once again, I look forward to having you back on the show soon.
Oh, thank you. My pleasure. And you have a wonderful spring and summer. And I just realized I only talk to you when the weather's not so great. So maybe we could make a date in July or something to talk.
We'll have to do that, Angelique. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks again to the angel of the big house, Michigan football beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News, for being our guest this week. Coming up next on Wolverine Quick Hits, we wrap it up for another week with the latest softball and baseball news here on the Michigan Man Podcast in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Wolverine Quick Hits this week, the number 4 ranked University of Michigan softball team plated 6 runs in the 6th to earn a 9-1 run-ruled decision and claim the series against number 14 Minnesota on Sunday afternoon at the Golden Gophers' Jane Sage Cowles Stadium. With the rubber match victory, the Wolverines reversed the result from Friday's series opener. The Wolverines posted 11 hits, 8 against Minnesota ace Sarah Grunigan, for their second straight double-digit hit tally of the series. Junior center fielder Sierra Lawrence and junior second baseman Sierra Romero tallied 2 hits apiece and combined for 4 runs batted in at the top of the lineup, while sophomore third baseman Lindsey Montemorano went 2 for 2 with a pair of walks. Sophomore right-handed pitcher Megan Betza, now 15-4, struck out 9 and allowed just 1 run off 3 hits and 5 walks against the potent Golden Gopher lineup. Betza struck out the side in the 4th inning and added 2 more in the 5th before getting out of a bases-loaded jam to preserve the run rule victory in the 6th. After a midweek home game with Eastern Michigan, the Wolverines will hit the road for a 3-game weekend series at Rutgers. Michigan is 33-6 overall, 7-2 in the Big Ten, again ranked number 4 in the country, heading into this week's play. Sophomore Brett Adcock gave the University of Michigan baseball team a quality start, and junior Travis Mazes and sophomore Carmen Benedetti had 3 hits apiece as the Wolverines picked up a road series win with a 4-3 victory over Indiana on Easter Sunday at Bart Kaufman Field. Adcock went 6 innings, allowed 8 hits and a run with 7 strikeouts and a walk to improve to a 3-3 record on the year. Benedetti pitched the 7th inning with a strikeout, and Paul went the final 2 frames with 3 strikeouts. Travis Mazes was 3 for 4 at the plate with 2 runs scored. Carmen Benedetti again was 3 for 4 with 2 runs batted in. And junior Jacob Cronenworth had 2 hits and reached base 3 times. Michigan will entertain Eastern Michigan midweek before traveling to Penn State for a 3-game weekend series. Michigan 18-13 overall, 4-5 in the Big Ten. If you can't get enough Michigan football news, you need to make Maize n Brew a part of your daily routine. Visit us at www.maizenbrew.com. This week we're recapping spring ball and, as always, bringing you the latest recruiting news on football and hoops. Don't find yourself out of the Wolverine loop this spring. Visit us at www.maizenbrew.com for the best coverage of your Wolverines anywhere. If you get the show from iTunes, please take a minute to rate or comment on the program. If you listen to the show on your laptop or desktop, you can sign up for free weekly delivery from iTunes. Our show app is also available in the iTunes Store for Apple users. For Android users, you will find us available in the podcast box, which you can download, which is available from Amazon.com. And for Windows users, our app can be found in the Windows 8 App Store. Thanks again to my guest this week, the angel of the big house, Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Next week, I hope to have beat writer Nick Baumgardner from MLive on to get his take on the state of Michigan football following spring practice. We also have our April football recruiting update. So tell your Michigan family and friends about the show, and please join me again next week for what we think is the best podcast coverage of your Wolverines. So thanks again for listening. That's going to do it for another week. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Until next time, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for listening to the Michigan Man Podcast. You can find us on the web at www.themichiganmanpodcast.com or www.maizenbrew.com. Our listener line is open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or you can email your thoughts and opinions to the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is brought to you in partnership with Maize n Brew, your best source for quality Michigan Wolverine news, analysis, stats, and scores from the fan perspective. Visit www.maizenbrew.com for the best coverage of your Wolverines. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!